Hello, everyone. Thank you. We're glad you're here for this part of the evening. You know, it's interesting, when we were getting ready for tonight, one of the things that we did is we listened to the sharing that happened at the 50th anniversary, and it was really interesting and powerful to hear the stories that were shared then, and so we thought we have to do that again for the 75th. So we wanted to take some time tonight to hear your stories. What do you remember about Wooster Mennonite? If you're still connected with Wooster Mennonite, please share what you're experiencing now, and this would just be a really rich time together. But I want to open us with prayer, so would you please bow your heads with me as we open? Lord God, I just want to give you thanks and praise for each person in the sanctuary right now and all those who traveled to be here for this 75th celebration. And as we share our stories together tonight and listen and remember and reflect, may we be reminded of your graciousness to us and your faithfulness over these many years, in the many ways you have provided for us, in the many ways you have inspired ministry to happen in this place and in our lives in the many places of life. And so we commit this time to you, and we invite your Holy Spirit to be at work, and we want to bring you all glory and honor, and we want to give thanks to our Lord Jesus for providing this time. It's in his name that we pray, and all God's people said, amen. Amen. Thank you. I had mentioned to former ministers that this would be an opportunity to share. Tomorrow's service is very full, and we're going to have a time of recognition for our former ministers. But tonight was going to be a time to hear from them. So I just thought we could start our time of sharing by opening it up to them. And Sandy Oyer, I'd like to invite you to come forward first, because you had mentioned you would be interested in sharing. So Sandy, are you with us here right now? Okay, great. Sandy, you can come up. He wanted to use a lectern, so he'll be speaking from the front.
Can you hear me? I got an old man's voice, so it doesn't come through very good. Well, it's a delight to be here and to see many of you who go here and who were here before, and welcome you all back. For Ginny and me, the period of service here at the Wooster Mennonite Church was a 10-year period from 1966 to 76. It was in the early years of the life of the church. When I came here, I didn't realize that the church was that young, but it was only about a decade and a half old at the time. But it was a decade and a half of right after World War II. And in the 60s, in that decade, some things were happening in America that were affecting all kinds of things. America was stretching and growing, and the church, the Mennonite Church, was going through the same kind of thing. The Mennonite Church at that time was going through some things about, we were caught up in the explosion that was happening in our society. The war days were over, and business was booming and things were happening. So the church was caught up in that. The Mennonite Church was discontinuing some of the customs and the cultures and the practices that had been done before, so that provided a change also. When I was ordained in 1954, ministers were still wearing the coat collar. I had one suit, I wore it one Sunday, and the ladies in the church said, "Why are you doing that?" That was a church in Kansas. So we were going through cultural changes, and many kind of things were happening. We were, prior to that, a lot of Mennonite churches were secluded and separated from the people around them. And this was a time in Worcester when, after Rudy Stauffer's thrust of missions to reach out and be involved, and that's what was happening in this time. So Worcester was a congregation of relatively new fellowship compared to the Mennonite church that I pastored in Kansas. But it was a decade of change and challenge, a time of coming and a time of going. It was a time of gathering and a time of scattering, and we saw that thing happen all over in the church. There were people coming and people going, and a lot of change was taking place. It was a decade of excitement, a decade of listening to what God had to say. And it was quite a contrast when I came here compared to the church that I pastored in Kansas, which was an old church. It was about the same size as this church, but it had different habits and some of the conservative things were still with them at that time. That was a decade of experiencing exciting times and outreach and growth for the members. They were committed to Christ and sharing their faith. This was a time of newness, a time of stretching, a time of change. I talked to one person that was here at that time and asked about how he felt about it. And he said, well, in reflecting back, it was a youth renewal movement that was happening. Something was happening among the youth that I don't think all the leadership was really abreast to. I'm not sure what Rudy Stauffer had in mind when he talked about reaching out to Wooster, but that started to happening in the 60s, of reaching out to be people beyond the Mennonite Church. When I came out of seminary in 1954, I had a passion for foreign missions, for evangelism, and for community outreach. And that was hard to do in Kansas with that church, with only 3,500 people in the whole county, 3 towns in the whole county, and 10 churches. And so I was preaching, we ought to reach out for Christ, and the people would say, who do we reach? The only people we get were cowhands that came to work on the ranch. So there wasn't an outreach opportunity there, but those people, those Mennonite people, were faithful in foreign missions and in relief work, and I appreciated that. So when we came here, it was a different kind of feeling. It was a challenge. Here we came, and I think Wooster was about 16,000 at the time, and there were about 90,000 in the county, and there were people all over us, and we were rubbing shoulders in and day out. And so there was a real opportunity for missions, for outreach. And the Wooster Church was ready for that. They were faithful to the mission outreach and the concept of God's call. Our youth was a large and very active group. We had large families, larger than happens today sometimes. We had families with 2 children, but we had many families with 4 to 7 children, and that provided a host of young people, and a lot of things were happening. So truly, revival was in the offering, and things were beginning to happen. At that time, the 1W program was going on, so there was 1W guys at the hospital up here. There were 1W guys at Boys Village and some other area services in the area. The College of Wooster provided some young people for our church at that time, as some of you will remember. There was an inspiration among them, and some of them helped us in Bible school and Sunday school. They were a spontaneous group of people without even leadership. When I came, we didn't have a youth pastor. We had youth sponsors, and I was busy with the work of the church and didn't spend a lot of time with the youth, but this thing was just going without any leadership. And they were having spontaneous prayer meetings, inspirations, the fellowship and sharing time, and not just on Sundays. It was happening anytime during the week when some group could be called together. So there were a lot of things happening, and God was moving. The Sunday attendance was around 150, sometimes, maybe not quite all the time. But when we peaked out, I remember some times when we had as high as 310. And we had chairs down the aisles, chairs up in the balcony in the aisles, and we needed space. Sometime the Wooster Fire Department got after us about putting too many chairs down the aisle because there wasn't enough room. So those years, those 10 years, there was some great things happening among the young people, and they were bringing new people in. 2 years of that 10 years, I baptized 65 people one year and 62 people another year. And it was so many being baptized, the floor hardly got dry between baptisms. So we had a lot of people coming from these different backgrounds, and especially we saw a number of Amish young men come to the church and were baptized. during that time. So this was a time of moving not only from leadership teaching and my preaching, but these young people were, and our adults were on fire for the Lord, and they were sharing their faith with their friends and their neighbors. So we say, who were some of these people? Well, I'm attempting to mention a few of them, and I know I'm going to miss some because I'm seeing some of you out here tonight, and I appreciate that. But earlier you saw John Peachy on the screen, and he was an elder for most of the time that I was here. And he had a daughter, Beth, that was a fireball. She got involved in this thing, and she was up to her head and shoulders in it. Beth brought Debbie Troyer. You know who Debbie Troyer is. You know who she came. She brought Karen Regani. These were non-Mennonite young ladies, and they came, and along others, some of the others brought other people, and they started showing up here. And then all at once their parents said, what these kids doing? We're going to go to that church and see what's happening to them. So we've got a bunch of families that came in it that way. Well, Beth did her service here and did her, and later she left and went to Iowa and was a chaplain in a Lutheran nursing home and did her service out there. So that was a separation, and others were including, I guess the Reganis still go to church here. Others brought their friends and their neighbors. People were coming and going. There was a constant movement of coming and leaving. Shortly after I got here, Mary Catherine Rohr was one of our members, and her oldest son, Lee Rohr, went to 1W. So we dedicated Lee to go to 1W. He went to Chicago. He's never been back since. Gerald Muma grew up in this church. He went to Goshen College. He got married, took a mission assignment with the Mennonite Mission Board in South America. Fred Yoder Jr. did his VS in Colorado, and as far as I remember, he got a job and things and never came back to the congregation. Audrey Noblet was in Arizona and became a real estate agent. And Janice Mosier was here with the group. And then Janice took her college and work, and she's been teaching in Arizona ever since and giving her service out there. Then there was John Miller. John Miller was a young Mennonite guy from Burton, Ohio, east of Cleveland, and he came in the hospital as a 1W guy. And when he came to church here, he got involved in that young group, and he was a very active leader in that as a young person. Well, John went on and later became a pastor of a church over in Orville. So these guys came and left. Some of them went to service at different places, and we appreciated that. So there was Cy Byler. There was John Schrock. There was Wes Miller, and he's here. And these guys were all active in this group. Cy Byler's dad was a bishop of Conservative Church Fairlawn out by Apple Creek. And a bunch of their young people came to our church. And one day I got a telephone call from Bishop Byler. Said he needed to talk to me. He wanted to know if my wife and I'd be free to talk. So I said, yeah, we made an appointment. He came to our house in the late afternoon. I saw him come up the sidewalk with his long coat, his high collar, and his wife with her cape and her long dress, and they came in, and I thought, I wonder what I'm into now. So we had a nice friendly visit, and finally Tobe said to me, Brother Oyer, I just want to commend you, church, for what you're doing for our young people. He said, for some reason, we don't have a youth group that's meeting any needs, and our young people are coming to your group, and I just want to pray your blessing upon them and your church. So that was a real relief for me, and I appreciated that by Tobe. I don't know if any of you remember Lois Rittenhouse. Lois Rittenhouse came from a Mennonite church in Pennsylvania. She got a job in a bank down here, and then came to our church, and we had an organ at the time, and she was a good musician. She played the organ along with some of our regular persons. Well, Lois got attracted by Glenn Smucker from Smithville Church, and they got married and had a family, and now their son, Sam Smucker, and Deb are in their fourth term, or starting their fourth term of mission in New Guinea, and they're a very fine missionary couple. So she made that contribution. Then there was Linda Stodmeyer. I don't know if any of you remember Linda Stodmeyer. She was a black girl from Wooster High School. During that time, the principal of the school invited the pastors for a meeting one time, and he said, we'd like to have a Pastor of the Day program for you to meet our young people, and we're going to give you an office and a desk and an open door in the office, and people can come in. Don't go out after them in the hallway, but let them come to you. Well, Linda Stodmeyer came in and talked to me about her spiritual life and growth in her church. She belonged to Second Baptist, the black church here in the community. So I invited her to our church, and she came and got involved with our young people. I was very excited. She had some brothers, and they came too. And they were coming along pretty good, and I got a call from Katie, her mother, one day, and she said, Brother Hoyer, I got something I want to share with you. I said, okay, Katie, what is it? She said, I don't mind Linda and my boys coming to your church. I don't care if you help them any. But I want to tell you one thing, Brother Hoyer. I don't want my black girls marrying your white boys, and I don't want my black boys to marry your white girls. So she set me straight pretty quick on that, and I said, Katie, wait a minute. We're not trying to get them married. We're trying to get them to experience something with Christ and have a great growth in their Christian life. So that was part of what happened. Well, then there was Jan Penner and Don Penner. Jan married Lonnie Hirschberger and ended up in Martins Creek Mennonite Church, and she was playing the organ there. And right after she went there to Martins Creek, the lady that had that community choir in Holmes County that had kids from all the churches got cancer and died, and Jan took over on that and operated it for about 20 years, so she made a great contribution. Don ended up being a pastor in a church in Colorado. So this movement was not with youth, but others too. I see some older people here that are older now. You weren't that older, but you were young married couples, and you were involved in that outreach too. And our adult people, that concept of reaching out was catching on with everybody. And so we had Paul and Ann Yoder, who came from Moorhead Church, and they were here with us a while. Paul made a great contribution to our music department and was chorister. And I always liked male choristers. God bless you female choristers, but Paul made a great contribution. They were here a while, then the Lord took them away. They went to Harrisonburg, and he headed up Choice Books, and she got into real estate. So this movement came and went. Claire Nussbaum and Lou were here. Claire was from Kidron Church. Lou was from here. And during the time we were here, we had the Hispanic group called the Singing of Vilas. And they had a tremendous ministry, and Claire and Lou followed them, helped them in their ministry. I think they spent some time in Guatemala in their ministry. And Claire and Lou finally did some work in Bible distribution in China. Janet Gasho and John came here. This was when some of the professional people were coming in. John worked in the community in counseling. They came to our church. They were here for a while. They left, and he went back to Pennsylvania. I think he continued in counseling there, and then I saw his name in the church periodicals as a leadership in one of the conferences in the East. So they were making a contribution here, and they left. John Smith from Illinois came and he taught high school, and he was here for a few years. Then he took a job at Goshen College and teaching there, and that's where he made his contribution then. But those people all made a dent here, then God took them somewhere else. Russ Hofstetter from Moorhead came with his family and was here a while. Then Harold and Esther Troyer, they didn't come regularly all the time, but they had some boys, and they produced two prospective husbands for people in this church. And then, of course, there's Steve Smith. Steve was from the Orville Mennonite Church, as you know, came to the College of Wooster, and came to church here while he was there. And along the way of line, he must again got in touch with one of the matchmakers at the college and brought Kathy with him, and they came to the church, and they're still here serving you. So that's the kind of thing that was happening during that period of time. And then, of course, at the later part of the time that we were here, Jerry and Beulah Steiner came, and they were active in the community and church, and Jerry was a physician at the Wooster Clinic. I'm just leaving so many people out that it bothers me. But they all had a great vision to serve Christ, to be faithful to Christ, to win other people to Jesus, and make the cause of Christ known. I've often thought of the Wooster Church experience as similar to the first church in the book of Acts, where Paul was telling the story of the church after the resurrection and the ascension of Jesus and the coming of the Holy Spirit upon them. And there were many souls saved. And the gospel turned out to be accepted by a lot of Jewish people, and some didn't. But soon there was trouble arose, and the apostles shared their faith with Jewish friends who believed and were baptized. But they didn't let them exist in a small cluster of Jewish people. They reached out to the other communities. And that persecution would send them out to other areas, and they were scattered throughout all Asia Minor, and the church was spread to the Gentiles. And they preached the gospel to those pagan Gentiles. And you and I today are benefactors of that witness. And so here we are, following what the early apostles started in the early church. And God is moving and scattering and sharing his love with the world. It's God's desire that no one should be lost. We need to keep that in mind. We have a mission to the people about us that don't know Jesus. So the Wooster Mennonite Church was involved in that. We were making disciples. We were healing the sick. We were giving life and health to broken homes and broken hearts, and bringing peace to the people when they accept Jesus. So God blessed the work of the Wooster Church in the past decades. He blessed it in the present, and I know he'll continue to do it in the future. So let's remain faithful to Jesus, and let's praise God for his goodness to us and his mercies, and keep on being faithful to him. God bless you all. Thank you.
Can we have a round of applause for Sandy? Yeah. Thank you. That's really wonderful. And Sandy, before you sit down, I just want to thank you. When I was starting out here, Sandy came by the office one day, and I had been a pastor here maybe a year or less, and Sandy came and he shared with me a little bit about his experience pastoring, and then he prayed for me. And I maybe didn't say much about it at the time, but it meant a lot to me. So I just want to thank you for that ongoing support. God bless you. Pastor Ralph Reinford, I don't know if you would like to say any words. No pressure, but if you do, this is an opportunity. It's up to you. I can bring the mic to you if you want. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. I don't have anything prepared like Sandy did, and you don't want to hear me anyway. But I was here for 14 years, and I was reminded it's the longest pastorate. So what does that mean? I think many good memories come back as I think about our time here, where our children grew up pretty much, and where I grew up as pastor. And it's a pleasure to see Ryan here, because they were some of very, very exciting years in our pastorate here at Wooster. And the fun the youth group had, and the support that the congregation provided for Ryan and Andrea as they came and were among us. I think a word of thanks, too, that you continue to support Lindsay and her husband, Asher. They are in Botswana, and we are grateful that at least some of you, or if not all of you, are supporting them in their mission endeavor. And we get to hear and talk to them pretty frequently with modern technology. So, and there's a learning tour going from Mennonite Mission Network, and Dean and Jan Fobb are going, and so we're sending a care package to them. And of all things, they want Skittles and M&Ms and things like that. So we'll see if they arrive there. But it's good to be here, and I guess I am officially your regional pastor. You probably didn't even know that, because I never show up. I have plenty to do, but I do check in with Jacob, and we really appreciate your contribution to conference.
We have a round of applause for Ralph. I, I just want to take this opportunity to share one real quick story about Ralph. When I we attended here, and then for a time I was Ralph's pastoral assistant. And one time I had a flat tire, and the car was out here on the south side of the building, and I think I might have said something. Ralph, oh, I had a flat tire. And he said, oh, really? And I said, yeah, I'm just kind of feeling down about that. So I went away and was doing some other things. When I came back, I was going to make arrangements to have the car towed. And when you know that Ralph had fixed that flat tire. So that's just one example of his heart. So I want to thank you. Oh, it just happened. Okay, it was miraculous. But I appreciate Ralph because he had done mentoring work and encouraged me, and I wouldn't be in this role today if it weren't for you, so thank you. So appreciate that. Ryan Clemens, would you like to say a few words? Youth pastor here during Ralph's time?
Yeah. Have to follow the immaculate inflation, apparently. There's a lot of things I could say, to be honest with you. And if you're lucky, I won't say all of them because I can get a little windy. But I will say that as we were preparing, even just today, to come here and visit and see so many folks we haven't seen in a long, long time, just overwhelmed with a feeling of gratitude, like a deep-rooted gratitude. We moved here for a half-time youth pastor job, okay? And so I've got my kids here now. My son, who is 12, going on 4, and my daughter, who's 9, going on 36. If one of them came to me as their dad and said, at 21, 22, 23 years old, and said, hey, I'm going to move across the state for a half-time job. How do you feel about that? I'm like, you guys are crazy. But the reality is that you guys surrounded Andrea and I at such a critical time. If you guys all knew the different times that we have thought to ourselves and said out loud over coffee in the morning, over dinners, long car trips, just how grateful we were at the families of those who had kids in youth group, the families of those who are still supportive of the youth program here. You gave us keys to an amazingly expensive car, and I'm really happy that we didn't wreck it. There are no words. I have a lot of them, and there just aren't any. I was just talking with Ralph a little while ago, and we were talking about the night that I got to interview with so many of you, and I was like probably more nervous than ever. Maybe you guys don't even know this. I actually drove past the church. It's like, that's the place I'm going to need to stop. And I actually drove past it and sat in the parking lot of the old Backyard Burger up there. You guys remember that place? Best Hawaiian chicken sandwich in the history of the universe, or at least in Ohio. Probably better in Hawaii. And then finally, kind of got my wits about me. Had traded emails with Steve and with Kathy, and Jeff and Brenda Troyer drove us around town the morning after. Got asked the greatest question that any youth pastoral candidate could ever be asked. I believe it was by your daughter. I think it was Cullen. Said, I just need to know what you think about the question, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. I was like, I didn't really know how to answer that. But that's when we found out Dutch Blitz was a big deal. But honestly, I think that the families and the kids here entered Andrea and I's lives at a time where we didn't have our own kids yet. I mean, Reese wasn't born for another 4 years after. And so in a lot of ways, you also allowed us to enter the lives of your kids. And so I see on Facebook the things that these kids are doing now. It is unbelievable. There's such a deep-rooted sense of pride. I love seeing Joe and Caleb in the back. Caleb's sporting his circa 2000, what did we say, 2004 youth group trip shirt. Joey assures me that he kept it for a while, but he used it for like work days and stuff. Caleb decided to just continue to wear it to formal occasions like this. But, Lindsay, seeing Colleen and Adrian Ramsey doing the things, seeing Colin and Amanda, and having the opportunity on my travels for work to sit down and have meals with these kids that are now grown-ups with their own families. You guys, it's a really special place here. And you guys are tremendously special people. And I'm not going to be able to spend near enough time with all of you as I want. But I just want you guys to know from Andrea and I just how grateful we continue to be all the time. All the time. For what you did for us. And I'm glad that we had a positive impact here. That story about the flat tire, that's like quintessential Ralph Reinford. It absolutely was. I remember the last time I was here, I was like, well, I remember one day we needed to wallpaper the meeting room. He's like, oh, we can do that. I'm like, can we? When I try to wallpaper with people, Andrea, we get angry. I've never seen anybody sharpen a butcher knife, getting rid of canned meat and kidron like Ralph, because he was just such a great mentor and a great teacher, Ralph. I cannot ever thank you enough for that. So this is such a wonderful evening. I hope everybody continues to have a great time. Looking forward to seeing more of you in the morning. That's more than I thought that I would say. So I'm going to give this back to you, Jacob.
Ryan, thank you. Now, as we all know, we wouldn't be here if it weren't for the vision of Rudy Stauffer. And I understand that some of his family are here today, and so we wanted to take some time to recognize you. If you're part of the family connected with Rudy Stauffer, would you stand up right now? We just want to recognize you, if there are any with us. Wonderful. Can we have a round of applause for them? Yeah. Yes. Thank you. You may be seated. We can't thank you enough that you're here. I mean, this means so much. You're a connection to our beginning, our roots, our origin, and it's such a blessing that you're here. Would any of you like to share anything? Any reflections or thoughts? If not, that's okay. I just want to give you an opportunity first. It's okay if you don't. Just your presence here speaks a lot. So, yeah, we're grateful for you. Wayne, oh my goodness, Wayne, I apologize. Wayne Nietzsche, former minister here before Ralph's. I apologize. Wayne, would you please stand up? I'm going to bring the microphone to you. We want to hear from Wayne. Yes, I'm so sorry. Let's all have a round of applause for Wayne. You were so patient. I'm so sorry. No. Good to see you. Good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the invitation to be here. It's a real joy to come back and to reconnect with you after all these years. I think out there talking with Beulah, it seemed like it was maybe 21 years since I left to become, Mary and I became part of Ohio Conference in a regional pastor position. But came here in 1987. I was just a pup, and I remember it was Roman Hirschberger said to me, Wayne, said, are you old enough to be a pastor? And I said, Roman, I'm the age that Jesus was when he finished his ministry. So I was 33 at the time. When we candidated here, the Lord sent a spring blizzard the first weekend in April of 1987 so that we would have a little more time to spend with Mark and Mary and the Headings family at their house. We were snowed in for, I think, 2 or 3 days and enjoyed playing ping pong and hanging out and having a wonderful time. And our daughter, Allison, was 1 year old at the time, and Mary was very pregnant with Megan. I remember that night being in the fellowship hall here, and we were planning to go east on to Virginia to visit Mary's family. And at the end of the meeting, I said, "So, what's your plans?" "Oh, we're going. Oh, well, there's a blizzard coming to West Virginia." And said, "Well, we better spend the night." So we spent the night, and ended up being, a couple nights. But anyway, it was the beginning of a wonderful 9 years, almost 9 years here, where our family grew up. Our daughters were friends with Amanda and with Colleen and yeah, just enjoy. Yeah, right. I'm forgetting names here, but now those are all grown as well. Maybe I'll let Mary tell you a little bit about our family, our daughters, where they are and what they're doing. When we moved from here in 2008, we moved because of Mary's work. She was called to a pastoral position in a large congregation in southeast Pennsylvania called Blooming Glen Mennonite Church, and was on a team there. And so I said, well, you followed my call, I'll follow yours this time. And it just happened that Percy Mennonite Church was looking for a pastor, and it's been a great fit. I've been there 9 years, so for 9 years we were going different ways on Sunday mornings. And just recently Mary transitioned back into a conference role with Franconia Conference as Associate Executive Minister of Franconia Conference. We connect with Ralph every once in a while, and Ralph followed me after I left here in '96. And then when I left Ohio Conference, Ralph followed me into the regional pastor position. And so Ralph, Percy Mennonite's next for you. Such a delight to be here. It could go on, but thanks for your nurture and care of me as a pastor and Mary. Delight to have seen many of you grow and mature in your faith and raise families and be faithful to God and to God's call on your lives. And continued blessing to you and your ministry here in Worcester and in this community. And if you ever come east, see us. Mary, do you want to say anything about Allison and Megan?
Yeah. Well, just to follow up Wayne, so Wayne was ordained here 2 years after we moved here. And then I was licensed also here at Wooster Mennonite. So this place, I feel like you all helped me grow and develop in my gifts, and I wouldn't have dreamt at the time that we started here that I would be doing some of the things that I've been called to. But you were a significant part of helping me, giving me permission and to utilize my gifts here, and I really deeply appreciate that. And our girls, Allison and Megan, had a wonderful experience here. And like Wayne said, Allison had just turned 2 and Megan was 6 weeks old. Now Allison has a six-week-old son, William. He was born right between Megan and Allison's birthdays at the end of July. And Allison and her husband Michael live in Long Beach, California. And Megan and her boyfriend are in New York City, in Queens. And so Megan just turned 30. So that tells me it was 30 years ago in September that we moved here. But many, many good memories of, I sang in the choir, and Kim, are you still directing the choir? Teaching Bible school and Sunday school and just all the good fellowship times and friendships that have been nurtured here and continue. So thank you. You've been a significant part of my journey.
Thank you very much, Wayne and Mary Nietzsche. That was wonderful. Thank you. Well, now is an opportunity for us to open it up for other sharing. Those of you who are present, any other stories that you have or things you would like to say about your time here, just raise your hand and I'll bring the microphone to you. We'd love to hear from you.
I don't know. Should I stand? I guess I remember the mission better than the church. Mom and Dad started going there when I was 2. It was then officially, I think, a church I mean, a church group. I think they had 8, or maybe by the time Mom and Dad went, there were more. But that was a wonderful place to grow up. I felt very loved, except for in the fall of the year. Because I started school when I was 5, so they put me with my school class. But every fall they came around and wondered if I shouldn't go down a grade. And I didn't want to, because these were my friends, and that was always kind of hard. But I remember a small group of people who worked together hard. I remember Minnie Carnegie. Mom says that when, what is his name, Detweiler, would come and preach, that the boys, the twins, wanted to sit behind Mom and Dad because they wanted to watch me. I remember them out at the front doors of this church. You remember how tall they were. And they were leaning into each other like an archway, and everybody had to go underneath of them. But it was just a wonderful place to grow up, and it's where my faith really took off in those early days. I don't remember the church being built. I think it was at the time when I was bedridden. I was trying to count up, and my math doesn't come out right. But I'm not sure when you first started meeting here, but I was baptized here. I remember that. And I remember that was shortly after my year of being bedridden. So that was quite young. But I have had so many experiences, close experiences with God in my life. And I credit that to all the love and teaching that I got at the mission and in this church. There were times in my life that were extremely hard, and I didn't know if I would survive. And I remember we lived on a farm, we had an apple orchard, and although we weren't supposed to climb the apple trees, I would go out and I would climb as high as I could in an apple tree and just pour out my heart to God, tell him everything I thought and felt, and I would not come down out of that tree until I had peace and could go face things again. And my life since then has been varied. I went to Wooster Mennonite for a couple years. Then I went to New York City for a couple years. That's where I met my husband. He was in 1W there. And we lived in Black Harlem during the mid-'60s. Now, some of you may remember what that was like in Black Harlem. We saw looting down on the street below us. We lived at the 7th Avenue Mennonite mission there. And we were very involved with the children there. Later, we moved to Boise, Idaho. And there is a Mennonite church now in Boise, Idaho, that we helped begin. And that's always been very special to me. But anyway, that's enough of my blabbering on, but it was good.
Can we give a round of applause for Evangeline? Thank you. Maybe we'll move over here to the other side. Is there anybody who'd like to share on this side? Oh, yes, very good. Oh, thank you. Yes, we have to mention, right before you share, we can't talk just about Rudy Stauffer. We have to remember our first called Pastor D.W. Miller. And so I'm glad you're going to speak right now. Lois, or will you be, or Grace, which one would you like to daughters of D.W. Miller with us today, which is another wonderful connection with our beginning. So thank you for being here. It's an honor.
It was our home that was the mission station, that we had to get ready every week for church. Had a lot of challenges. I remember this church being built. Several things I'd like to say. One thing I remember about when they put the carpet in, you know, if you'd rub your feet like this, you could go up to somebody and touch them and the sparks would fly. That really terrified me because when it's when we lived, before we came here, I got shocked. I really got shocked with my feet in water, turning on a light bulb. So I was scared to death of being shocked, but I finally got over that. But I remember being out at the Zerkers. You raised popcorn, didn't you, for the MYF? Okay, wasn't the popcorn, though, that had to be stripped? No, that was the sorghum. Okay. That was the days before we had MYF sponsors. And being a pastor's family, Mom and Dad always went with the MYF. Of course, there's three of us girls. I'm the middle of the three. Lois and my older sister lives in Vermont, our older sister. Anyways, I remember going out there and stripping the sorghum. And I was short and I was young. And I would try my best to pull strip that down. And I had my mouth open, and a spider fell in my mouth. Oh, I spit it out. So I tried again, and the second time I also had my mouth open. Same thing happened. Another spider fell in my mouth. After that, I learned to keep my mouth shut.
Can we have a round of applause for Grace? Yeah. It's just a real honor to have you here, and you gave so much to even have your very living space as part of the worship life of this congregation, so thank you. Wow, that's amazing. Yes, please. And may I just let everybody know, Ethel Zerker is the last living charter member we have, and she's here with us tonight here at Wooster Mennonite. Can we give her a round of applause before she shares? Thank you. This is an honor to have you.
I remember when we first came, we met in the home of Henry Schaup in the afternoon. It was our family, or at least part of our family, and Minnie Carnegie and Ella Ryan, and I don't know who else, but we met there in the afternoon. And then when we got the parsonage, the living room and dining room was 2 rooms, and there was a partition, and there weren't many people there. Our family was about half of the people that went to church there, and but then more people came, and so they took the partition away, and I think we grew to have crowds of about 80 or something like that. In those 2 rooms. It was really crowded, but then we went farther in the kitchen and the dining room, and all the downstairs there was filled. Sunday school classes were in almost every room. I don't think they were in the master bedroom, but they were in all the other bedrooms and all the rooms, and then we grew. We had the MYF first. There weren't many young people there. It was my brothers and sisters and the Leymans, Glenn Lehman and their family, and Donnie Ressler, Donna Gable, and the Gables. But there were very few. We sort of felt really the lack of young people there in doing things. That's the one thing that I remember, that we just didn't have a variety of young people there. But we passed out the MYF. We did different things like that, and we grew, and then Mrs., your mother, Velma, and I started the church library. It was just in a little bookshelf in the front of the meeting room there, and I worked at that until I moved to Arizona, except for when I was at college. And we had Wayfarer girls for a while. That was the girls from like 10 to 14 or something like that. And I remember the Bible school, especially when we had the basement. We had monk's cloth strung between tables that were strung out, and monk's cloth between, and we had the children in the basement there. And I can remember that some years we had 20 children around a big long table with the monk's cloth in between. If you can think about trying to teach little children, nursery, kindergarten children, I would oftentimes take them out on the yard for Bible stories and that, because it was a lot easier for them to listen and to do things. And then we got the upstairs here, which was really nice. But we then, at times, we had junior meetings down there, Sunday evening when they had the services up here. And but then the MYF grew, in which we liked, and like Grace said, we had projects, and it was sorghum, and we had little booklets. My sister still had the booklet that we made and passed out to anybody who bought sorghum. And we were involved with the MYF, and we one thing, I don't know if I should say this or not, that at that time when we started here, a number of the people thought that one side should be the men and the other side should be the women. Well, the kids in our family got together and said, we're not going to do that. We're going to break that up so families can be together. Well, at first my dad sat on one side and my mom on the other, but we all sat on one side, and the others in the MYF sat on the side too. But it didn't take too long till we started mixing up, and families would sit together, and so we broke up that one side men and the other side women, which was really a lot better for families than that. But yeah, they were some ways it was a little hard being small, but in other ways it was good too. And back to you. Yes, there were 8 of us together. Now, I don't remember all the names. Roland Ross, Ella Ryan, my sister and I, McAfee, Mrs. McAfee, and there was, what? Evelyn and I were the first baptized, but the others were charter members. Well, I think, yeah, they. But they weren't baptized, so they were too young, and they had not accepted Christ yet, so they were not baptized. But yes, Evelyn and I for quite a while now were the only charter members living. But my sister died. If anybody knew her, she died last February. Yeah, 2016. I keep forgetting which year it is. Sorry, yeah. Your other sister who was attending for many years, can you tell us? Frances? Yeah, she she wasn't around for a while when it was the beginning of the church because she had gone to La Junta and took training to be a nurse. And so she was not here at the real beginnings of the church. And then when she came back, I don't know how it happened, but quite a number of people, young couples, they got married, and then they had children, and that's one thing that really helped us grow at that time. And then that's why we had a good Sunday school class. You know, I had Wesley and Paul Zerker and Audrey Noblet and a bunch of those in that Sunday school class. And Marla Brenner. Okay, I hadn't got to meet you yet here. Marla Brenner and Weldy, Larry Weldy, Nancy, and so I had those in class, and some of them I even had at school and in church. Yeah, Rosanna and my niece. I had, let me see, Rosanna, one of the Basinger boys, Darwin Basinger, and Carol Zerker. They were all in the same class at Smithville when I taught second grade there. So, you know, I really got to know them. And I can't remember who else, but that was pretty. Oh, Audrey Noblet was in my class. So I really had a bunch of them that one year. It's a good thing they were in my class because they were good students, and I had 44 kids in second grade by myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
And she read all the Little House on the Prairie books to us.
Yes.
Second grade. I'll never forget that.
That's because we had time to do that. Now you don't have time, but speaking, that's a sort of a different subject, but I taught 35 years, and I read Little House in the Big Woods every year I taught school. Marilyn did too, and 34 years, you know, because it's good stories for them, you know. Anyway.
Can we have another round of applause for Ethel? It's just evident that you've touched so many lives here, and we're so grateful. We're so grateful, Ethel. Thank you for being here for this. Oh, Herman, and then we'll come back over here.
Can you stand an amusing story? I'm Herman Zerker. I'm the youngest of the Zerker clan. I was about 10 or 11 years old when the building was built, and I remember it well. I remember when they dug the basement and built the walls and so forth. Well, I grew up on a farm north of town out Route 83, I think it is now. And I observed the men were carrying brick up to put on the scaffolding to lay up for the next day. They would take them up in the evening, about 3 or 4 evenings a week. And that was a very laborious job to carry brick up a ladder or whatever to get it up on the scaffolding. And on the farm we had a grain elevator with a continuous chain that I didn't like very much. And I told my dad, I said, if we take that grain elevator in here, we could put the brick on at the bottom and take them off at the top, which we did. Now, in my mind, I knew that when we were done with it, the grain elevator would be worn out. And it was. And then we got a new grain elevator, which I liked much better.
Thank you, Herman. Yes. Okay, Ethel has one more, then over here, and then back. Yeah.
This happens to be with my brother Wilfred. He's a little older than I was. But we had tent meeting services about 3 years down at the square of Wooster, the northwest side. There was an empty lot there, and so we put a tent there, and we had these meetings. Well, you had to put the tent up, and so my dad was there, and my brother Wilfred was helping there helping, quotation marks. But anyway, he liked to climb. And he climbed up the center pole, clear up to the top till he came up above the tent. And then he turned around and came back down. But in the meantime, a patrolman stopped and asked my dad about somebody being up there at the top of the pole. And because somebody had reported to him, they saw this person up there. And my dad said he didn't know of anybody because as far as we know, he didn't see my brother Willie go up and come down again. And so anyway, he lived through it, you know. But it was always a funny story we told.
That's a good one. Thank you. Let's give a round of applause for that.
I am Marion Brenner Beeler, and I attended church here from the time I was a baby until I think early 70s. And I can remember, I'm glad somebody mentioned Ella Ryan. I can remember going to her house. She was our Sunday school teacher, and she would bring us there. And I don't know if she did it more than once, but she would invite all of her children that she taught and invite us there for dinner to her house. And I was baptized here when I was 15 in the front of the church. And I can't remember who all was up there with me, but I can remember, I think it was Shirley Basinger and Ruth Kaufman and maybe Loretta Hurst. Wes, were you up there? You don't think so? I can't remember either, but I know there were quite a few of us. And then I can also remember, this is funny, we sat up in the balcony, our family did, and there were some young teenage boys that were sitting on the right side, and they would make paper wads, and they would throw them down from the balcony, down on the bottom of the church where people were sitting. I can remember my dad kind of raising his eyebrows like that, but that's the funny thing I remember as a teenage girl.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Let's give another round of applause.
One of the first memories I have of this church is when I come here for Rudy Stauffer's installation as bishop. And I think he was also bishop for East Greenville. One other memory I have is the hymn sings we used to have. Somewhere along the line, I got interested in a young lady from this church. It was more than an interest because this next Saturday will be 59 years with the same woman.
Thank you for sharing. It's wonderful.
I'm Melanie Hirschberger Oswald now. I just want to say that I have great memories of being at the mission on Gashi Street. I was baptized there on the front porch, and I just have great memories, and I remember when this church was built.
Thank you for sharing that. We're so pleased you're here. Thank you for being here.
And Melanie and Harold were great one Mennonite Youth Fellowship guy. You know, they looked over us. Sponsors, yeah. And Ethel, just I remember her as a great second grade teacher, but in Wayfarers she led us really good. Had cookouts and sleepouts at her farm and the pig farm and all that stuff. I'm Rosie Hirsch Miller.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, Janine, and then we'll come back here. Yes?
I don't remember when I first coming back here, but I know I went on a mission trip out to Pennsylvania when I think Brian was here, and and some of the other people. I remember going up into Pennsylvania or up into Canada for a mission that we did when I was coming here, and I can't remember when I first started coming up here. I think, down here on Bowman Street when I first coming up here. I can't remember for sure where it was at, but anyway, I can remember going up I think it was in Canada that we went up have a mission up, and we worked on houses and things like that, and there's a lot of things I really can't remember, but those were one of the things I can. And I was here when Ryan and Glenn and all of them were here back in those days. But other than that, I wasn't here when Mustafa was here. But I know we have an auctioneer called Pete Stauffer. He always does our Thanksgiving sales at our Thanksgiving sale. And we always have one of those out at the Springer Barn. If you ever get out that way around Thanksgiving time, stop in, because we have a lot of things going on out there at the Springer Building and for our Thanksgiving. They have things in the back for the kids to do, and we always have an auction on Thanksgiving. It used to be over in our church annex, which is up across from my home church, which is now a house. And my family we all had parts in taking care of the church, and so I grew up in the Sunbury Valley and I would make my way in the care, and I would go over with my bike, and our family used to do a lot. And my brother still has a gravesite yet, but he's looking for somebody else to take it over, and he wants to kind of retire when he'll retire next year this year when he hits 60. But our whole family has been a part of Salem, and it's just, and coming up here and things like that, people are just great. They really helped me a lot, and I moved. If anybody knows where I live now, I'm living down at the down Townview. I'm in an assisted living program, and if anybody wants to stop in and see me, they're more than welcome to, because I sure love to see a lot of people that come and see me. So anyway, those are some of the things I can remember, cleaning this church and doing some of the yard work and things like that up here too. So yeah, so I'm glad I can come to this church. I like it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Janine. We appreciate you. Sandy.
Well, Marilyn double dipped, and so I'm going to take an opportunity to do the same. I want to pay tribute to one of the members that was here quite a while. That's Malin and Beulah Zarker. They spent a lot of time here. I spent some time yesterday at the Orville Nursing Home with Malin and talked to him, having brought me up on date where they started over at Salem, and they went to Gashi Street, and then they came here. And right now they're at Smithville Mennonite, and they're in my Sunday school class. I've been with them 20 years, and they've been in my class. Beulah is 98 years old, and Malin is 94, 95. They're the oldest people, and it's amazing the things that they can get done. And I just wanted to say, Malin told me that they were married in the Gashi Street building. Was when their wedding was happening. So give your prayers to them. And then I need to mention Herman. I forgot to mention Herman. He was one of the best treasurers I had in the churches I was. He kept track of our money and kept it banked well, and I thank you, Herman, for that. Now, one other thing that happens when we can serve and we move around, sometime God takes us to heaven. And Ginny and I were reminiscing recently, and of all the couples that were here in service, some of you are here and you're still younger, but all the couples that were active in service when we came here, there's only 3 of us that are left. That's Ginny and I, Beulah and Malin, and Willis and Katie Miller. There are some of you here that your mates have already gone, but we're the only 3 couples that were active in the church back in that decade. Willis Miller is currently blind. He had macular degeneration a couple years ago. They have a home in Sarasota and a home in Indianapolis with their youngest daughter, Val. And right now we're thankful they're in Indianapolis rather than Sarasota. So Katie is not well, but they're hanging in there. But we just thank you for all the support you've given us three couples for that time.
Thank you, Sandy. That's wonderful. Janine reminded me there are a few people who wanted to be here tonight and couldn't be. Janita mentioned Dorcas Ross, who is at Bremfield in Orville, and she wasn't able to be here tonight and would have liked to have been. Did you say she's sick right now? Or?
Yeah, she has pneumonia.
So keep Dorcas Ross in your prayers. And also, I wanted to mention Glenn Horner, a former minister here, was planning on being here, but his wife, Thelma, has pancreatitis, and so they weren't able to travel. So please keep Glenn and Thelma Horner in your prayers. They wanted to be here tonight and are sorry that they couldn't make it. Are there any other voices who'd like to share before we close? I thought it would be nice to sing for our final time together tonight. What is the song? It was in the Brown hymnal 606. It's a different number now. What is that in our 118? So if you could turn to 118, and we'll let one more person have the last word before we sing. So is there anybody who wants to share before we sing? And if not, that's okay. Just wanted to give one last chance because I didn't give you a warning there. I just sprang it on you. Oh, yes.
Elmer Stauffer and I were married at the Gashi Street house 68 years ago.
Oh, wonderful. Let's have a big round of applause. Thank you. That is a fantastic note to end on. So thank you very much for sharing that. So I invite you, please stand, and will you join me in singing 118 as our closing? And then we'll look forward to seeing a number of you tomorrow who are able to make it. Go in peace.